But here we are, Mr. Lawrence Taylor is standing by over there in Texas, US, to join us to explore the issue around, the 1 trillion US dollar that Saudi government is bringing into the US economy. Global financial market is already reacting. Analysts are saying this kind of money, when it comes, it has a target. And for the Saudis, they already have a target. They're taking that money to the tech sector in the US economy. They're taking it to the sports. They're taking it to the Hollywood. That means the entertainment sector of the US economy, where films will be produced, as well as other key area of the US economy. Will be joining us shortly right now, but we need to go for a break so that we can bring him in. Oh, okay, he's there already. So let's have Mr. Lawrence Taylor on right now. Mr. Lawrence Taylor, a good day to have you on the show, sir.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Oh, great. You are looking, your appearance today is, you are not in Nigeria, but you are appearing in Nigerian way.
Yes, I'm trying to make up for when I was in Abuja and I had on a suit instead of a traditional wear.
All
So,
right, all right, all right. This is good. I love the outfit, your black cap, and what goes with it. But straight to the point, how did you receive the news? Because the meeting between President Donald Trump and the Saudi prince ended early this morning in US. But how did you receive the information of the Saudi government 1 trillion US dollar investment into the US economy?
well, it's a good thing
Mm,
because 1 trillion sounds like a lot of money.
mm,
Uh, in the scale of the U.S. economy, though, you have an economy that has 38 trillion
mm,
in debt. So, and part of that is that because of the tariffs, again, I don't want to divert. I want to focus on
mm,
the Saudi part. Because of the tariffs that this administration, again, I'm not political, but these are just facts. The Chinese and the Japanese, who usually support the U.S. treasuries by buying a lot of U.S. debt, are pulling back, and so this is a it's a good thing for the president, I would say, because if one source of money coming into U.S. treasuries is gone, two sources, Japan and China, are going, he had to find some way to supplement. So apparently he has built some good relationships there, and that's why. But the Saudis also have their own motivation for doing it. It's not just to prop up U.S. economy. They have their own motivations. And they are going to get it
mm.
because they are appeasing. They know the nature of this current U.S. president to make him look good, that as if he's bringing something in. And so that's what that is about. It's a lot of photo op opportunities to try to bring some good news where there has been a wave and wave of bad news. That's basically what it is.
Exactly. But for
But
most US
it's
economists, analysts, they pointed to the fact that this is not the first time Saudi will be investing in the US economy. Even before this 1 trillion was announced, Donald Trump, president of US, was expecting a 600 billion US dollar investment from Saudi. But the prince surprised him and said, no, we are not coming with 600 billion US dollar. We are coming with 1 trillion US dollar. And for economists in US, they see it as opportunity for businesses like the tech sector, the Hollywood sector, the entertainment, and the sport. These are the traditional sector in the US economy that Saudi has always invest their money. But what do you make of this
Mhm.
investment coming to this choice aspect of the US economy, the tech, the sport, and Hollywood?
Again, it's part of the motives the Saudi have in doing this.
Mm,
Tech, especially in the advent of AI and AI tools, they want to show their presence in that area. So it makes sense. In fact, any country that can invest in this technology would be wise. And I think the Saudis are wise to do it. Again, it will help their economy, not just the US economy. Entertainment is universal. U.S. entertainment industry, Hollywood film and music is enjoyed all over the world, so that makes sense. And also sports, especially with the World Cup coming to North America, it makes sense as for them, for the Saudis, to be like part of the, so to speak, the paparazzi, you know. So it makes sense. It's good for the Saudis. It's also good for the US because that's extra $1 trillion that uh, wasn't there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But let's look at other factors, particularly the global financial market. I read some article earlier today, and I see that most analysts are saying it's a good way of Saudi diversifying the economy, particularly as they are shifting away from the oil perspective of the economy. And you know, the Saudi has what they call the 2030 vision, which aims to diversify Saudi economy into a larger spectrum of global economy. But for the global economy per se, the financial sector, what do you make of this investment? You know, you are a financial analyst and you know more about global perspective. Do you see any shaking, any uncertainty coming from this kind of investment in the US, particularly, you know, the tech that have most of their money in the stock market on the Wall Street of US?
Well, like I said, it's a good thing. I don't see any downside to it, if that's what you're asking me. I don't see any downside to it, especially to the Saudis. And in fact, any country that has extra resource, whether it's Nigeria, Saudi, Argentina, any or some Asian country, Thailand or whatever, that has the extra resource to put into it, I think it's a good thing because it'll be good for that country and be good for the US economy too.
Interesting. And for you, what can other countries learn from this kind of, you know, perspective in businesses, particularly economic diversification? I know you quickly look back home to Nigeria. We have been looking at opportunity to do economic diversification. Although the government have been doing their bit through the euro bonds investment, dollar bonds investment. But what kind of advice can you give countries like Nigeria? Because when I was doing my research, I stumbled upon one of US professor of economics who made mention of Nigeria, that Nigeria and other developing countries need to take a clue from what Saudi is doing in terms of investing abroad. But what do you say to Nigerian government and our investment drive?
It is very true. That is even I think I've mentioned that in a couple of our past interviews had with me that Nigeria depending solely on the energy sector is not right. There are so many sectors. Agriculture is good. Technology, we have a lot of engineers. Technology is a good sector for, like all these data centers that are springing up, especially because of AI. That's a sector that even somebody like me, I'll be willing to partner with Nigerian government, for example, to build one or two data centers in Nigeria to bring some of this tech business to Nigeria. So it's a good thing because if you depend on solely energy sector, which is cyclical, it goes up and it comes down, and where government is pretty stable, then the rest of everybody cannot be in the same sector. We need to diversify, and we have the manpower, the brain power. Nigeria is a blessed country with capital, human capital. The brain power in Nigeria, if it's fashioned properly, we will have a diversified economy.
Interest.
We can have technology. We have biotech is big. We have a lot of medical, and there's nowhere in the world that you will not find a Nigerian medical doctor. So medicine is a big sector that can be developed, healthcare. You have all kinds of sectors that can be developed, and that country will be way better off for it.
Exactly. Now, behind all that is happening with the US government having to attract Saudi Arabian government with a $1 trillion investment coming to the US economy, behind all this is the recent issues around tax rolled back by Donald Trump. Can you help us understand what I won't say politics because I know you don't like talking politics, but the economic sense behind Trump turning back and having a tax rollback right now?
Tariff rollback.
Yes,
That
yes,
is
tariff rollback.
Well, it makes it tariff should never have happened in the first place. I mean, it's something that so it's a dead end. It was a dead end policy, so rollback makes sense. It was a gambit that he, as a president, by his prerogative. I mean, he was the elected one, not me. Uh, he chose that route, and it's a dead end route. And once, if the smart thing is to roll back because it makes no sense. It has put too much pressure on the economy. It has made the inflation worse. When he came into office, inflation was at about 9%. Inflation since January to now, inflation is at 24% in less than a year. So and it's all because of a function of the tariff. And so it makes sense. That will hopefully relieve some of the inflationary trend. Maybe at least slow it down. Because for inflation to jump from 9% in January to now 24%, that is a big leap. That's 15% leap. Even the stock market doesn't jump that much in 1 year.
Exactly. Now, let us also take a look at one of the issues that was raised that many analysts in the US are now saying maybe this gives reason why Donald Trump have to look back and do a tariff rollback. That the Chinese government were so resistant to some of the policy of Donald Trump. And that alone gave Donald Trump the opportunity to say, okay, let me go back and look at my document and see what I can do better. But what do you make of all this so far from the Chinese government, particularly, the US targeted their economy in terms of import and export. But Chinese was able to, according to some economists, they said the Chinese was able to beat round and were smarter than Donald Trump in this case of the tariff that he wanted to impose on the Chinese goods coming to the US. But what do you make of all this, going forward?
I think it makes sense because I also believe if you go back about 4 months ago when you interviewed me earlier in the summer or spring,
Exactly.
I told you that the Chinese were in a stronger position to withstand whatever tariff Donald Trump brought. And although I'm not in the forecasting business, it has turned out to be true. Because now they pull some of the levers they had, i.e., they are the largest debt holders in America. American bonds, the Chinese hold the largest share. And so when they no longer buy those bonds, again, as part of a way to retaliate for the tariff, and then imposing tariffs so that any export out of this country is costing more, imports into this country is costing more. That's part of why. So the Chinese are in a lot better, stronger position than America when it comes to this tariff war.
Interesting. But let's also take a look at another interesting aspect of the US, politics, but it affected the economy. The 48 days shutdown of the government programs, event, and the rest of them. Can you just take us through before I ask further question? Because a lot of Nigerians will be wondering, government shutdown. Some people are seeing it as workers down tolling their tools. Others are seeing it as strike. There was even a comparison between Nigerian workers and US government. But for you that is there, take us through what really happened in this regard.
Okay, it was not a strike by employees. It's basically a strike by the government. That's essentially what a government shutdown is. Yeah. So just like labor unions will shut down, they will not work. The U.S. government decided that except for essential employees like the military, law enforcement, some of the more sensitive sectors, everybody and all of those people will have to work. But they won't get paid until for like the last 40, it was actually 43 days. So for like let's call it 5 weeks, they were even those who were going to work were not getting paid when they worked. But now they are going to get what is called back pay. So it's all part of this politics of gambling with people's livelihood to try to create disruption. he thinks disruption. I think this president, his strategy is to disrupt every sector to make it so that it can be said that he did this, he did that, and he's accomplishing it because he's always in the news. But I don't think that is always for the good reason. And the government shutdown is one example. It wasn't a good, and he notoriously now has the two longest shutdown episodes in U.S. government. The first one was 30 something days, some 35, 36 days in the first time he won, some a decade ago. And now this one is the longest. So the longest and the second longest, both, and that's not a good mark for any U.S. president, especially when you're dealing with people's livelihood.
Exactly. And talking about the livelihood, we saw a lot of news and we read a lot of reports around government workers in US having to begin to beg from hand to mouth, meaning that a lot of those workers were going to places to collect food, to collect some basic necessity to keep them going. But what do you make of that? Because the picture that we saw in Nigeria, a lot of people were surprised, but it really happened in US. And you saw it, but share your experience with us.
Yeah, that's why I call it government strike. Because when the government strike, that's
That's serious.
that's what happens.
Exactly.
People who should not be miserable, even even six-figure earners, people who are making $100,000 were impacted. You can imagine if somebody who makes $100,000 is impacted. What about someone who makes only 10, 20, 30? You can see how miserable people were. And it's part of why some politicians, including people from his party, decided, oh no, this has to stop. And the Congress, even the House of Rep, they came back from their early vacation to vote that they have to reopen the government because people were miserable. And when they went to their constituents, all this House of Rep and senators were hearing from their voters, including people from their own parties, regardless of the party.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, for the US economy, the shutdown really affected it in one way or the other, even though the private sector was the major backbone of the US economy, because outside US, a lot of people didn't see that particular incident as too big or too consequential for US economy. But for those of us who understand economy, we know that that really affected the US economy, particularly in the area of income, income
Yes.
parity and the rest of them. But take us through on what really happened. As government shut down, workers are not being paid, few people are going to work, the income was becoming something. And you said something that is very instructive. You said people that were earning 6 digits were now looking miserable. And
Yeah.
in Nigerian parlance, if you talk to somebody looking miserable, that means it's quarter to a poor person. So, but take us through on this particular incident in the US economy.
Yeah. You, in fact, I wish I had sent you some videotapes. There are something called food lines, where places, food banks, where people go to receive food that is supplemented by the government. If you see the pictures and of these lines, and the types of you see even some brand new people to show you people high earners were on those lines. You'll see people driving Lexus, you one or two Mercedes Benzes. You see brand new Toyotas to show you that those are high income earners who can afford those kinds of cars in food lines, driving up to collect food supplement from a food bank. That's how bad it was.
Interesting. But for now, how is the environment now? Even though we are seeing positive picture coming about, you are on ground there, you know much of what has really happened, what has transpired, but at this point in time, how is everything at this point in time in US?
It's not gradually normalizing. People are getting back to work, especially government workers. They are getting back now that the government is no longer on strike, like I call the shutdown. And some of the funding in the food supplemental things that they call it SNAP in America, food stamps for low income people, are being approved. So people are beginning to gradually normalize. And I think in the next, hopefully, with the holiday spirit coming up, people, by the time January comes around, I think things will be back to more normal than it has been.
Exactly. But let's go to the stock now. The US stock, we are also seeing news coming out from the US stock, particularly the tech. Let me start with the tech. What kind of competitive stock equity, investment that is happening among these tech company, from the Apple of this world, Microsoft, and the rest of them, take us through what is really happening because we are reading and seeing a deep competitiveness in terms of the equity and their stock on the floor.
Well, the competitiveness again comes about because of innovation. There's a lot of innovation right now in technology. So those big giants, the Googles of the world, the Microsofts, the Apples of the world, they are positioning, and they are also all have a lot of cash to invest in all the new technology and technology tools that are now supporting this economy. That's simplifying work. That's making it easier for companies to hire fewer people. And so all these companies are in good position with this new, especially so-called AI economy. Unlike the tech bubble, I think this is going to be a little more sustainable than the technology bubble of the early 2000s. That's not to say it won't bust, but at least for now, it's sustainable because it's helping reduce cost. The cost of having, let's say, each company has their own server room, for example, where if let's say a big firm, let's say 5,000, a decent set with 5,000 employees, in order to support 5,000 employees, they used to have a network room that will have about 100 file servers. Now they can do that with AI. They can do it with only 10 file servers. Because with what AI has this thing called virtualization. So instead of having physical servers, you can now have a virtual machine in AI that would do the same function of what the other 90 servers were doing. But you're all doing it electronically through the cloud. And that's what's supporting this economy. So it's the overhead of having to have employees man all these things is cut down. So companies are in a more profitable position because of it. And these companies are going to be sustaining. And the cash they are saving from having to buy all this equipment, all this technology equipments, is really making it possible for them to be competitive.
Exactly. I really, agree with you on that regard, particularly the tech on the U.S. stock market. They're really doing very well. That's why the competitiveness is coming. But that will not be said of the Asian stock market because the tech on the Asian stock market are fumbling at this point in time. But we won't go into that. Maybe later on we'll find a way to discuss Asian stock with you in that regard. But for now, before I let you go, in less than 1 minute, what do you have to say to the Nigerian government? The Nigerian external reserve is rising. Revenue is rising. But what is your advice to the Nigerian government before I let you go?
Again, do what the Saudis are doing. Diversify that economy. Government should invest in other sectors of the economy, particularly agriculture, healthcare, education, infrastructure. Help businesses that are in that sector be sustainable so that they can employ people. Because the government cannot, the truth, even in the US, cannot employ all citizens in government. The government cannot employ everybody. So make it possible for a business person like myself or like yourself to set up a business, have a facility where we can hire people. If the government of Nigeria does that, if the politicians, again, I've mentioned it before, if the politicians quit being greedy, let all the money be said that they have it and diversify, the country will be better off. The economy will be better off. And the people, the workers, will be better off.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Lawrence Taylor, all the way from Texas, US, helping us to have a perspective on the Saudi $1 trillion into the U.S. economy. Thank you so much. And giving us that perspective on the Donald Trump tariff rollback.
You're welcome.
I hope we won't have tariff come back.
Hopefully he has learned his lesson, and
Exactly.
it won't. Yeah.
Right.
So hopefully he has learned his lesson.
Exactly. So enjoy the rest
Yeah.
of your day over there in the U.S.
You have a fantastic rest of your
All
day.
right. I've been speaking with Mr. Lawrence Taylor, happen to be a financial analyst based in Texas, US, helping us to understand the dynamics of the Saudi Arabian $1 trillion into the US economy. Quite interesting. And this is an advice to all other emerging economies. Find a way to just diversify your economy in that way. We'll be going for a short break so that we can come back for our next point of discussion. We're talking about rising Nigerian external reserve, 46.7 billion. That's what Nigeria has now in our external reserve account, 46.7 billion US dollar. But Mukhtar Mohammed will be helping us to understand that after this break.